want to say that you do not have a new recruit here, so don't get excited. That is the Democratic operative, Rachel. She follows me wherever I go. If you want to know how my campaign's doing, that means I'm doing pretty well. They wouldn't be sending her around wasting her time if they weren't worried about me. I will give you a quick update on my campaign, and then I'll go into a little bit about myself, and I'll take any questions that y'all might have. The first quarter just ended recently, and the numbers will be posted on Thursday or Friday. And my number, I'm very proud to announce, is $320,000. I raised $216,000 the fourth quarter. So with this quarter, I should be, doing pretty well. I'm hopeful that I'll have the most cash on hand of any candidate in the Republican primary, which means that I'll have the money that we need to take on Mark Schauer, because he has probably $1.4 million in the bank. I could be wrong about that, but every quarter he gets about $300,000 to $350,000. If you look around the country, you see that every vulnerable Democrat gets that amount of money usually, and that's the Democratic welfare check, so to speak. They get 70% of it through PAC money, usually straight out of DC, and that's what, if you look at Mark's numbers, that's what he's been getting. I will say also, I was at the Tea Party Express on Saturday night in Lansing, and I don't know if any of you anybody there? It was a great event. It was a beautiful night, and I think there were like 2,000 people there. Now the press said 800. I think the Tea Party themselves said around 1,500, but it was packed, and people were fired up. And I'll tell you, you were speaking about women not being in politics. Well, women are in the Tea Party.
Yay!
It's, I would say, a clear majority women's movement. And, really, to me, the Tea Party are people like my mother-in-law, who one day in the summertime called me up. She was visiting her boyfriend. She's divorced up in Philadelphia. And she called me on the phone. She'd never been involved in politics ever before in her life. She voted, but she wasn't on fire for politics. She called me up and she said, "Brian, I'm thinking of taking the train from Philly down to D.C. to go to the D.C. Tea Party they had down there in the summertime." And I was like, "Nita, is that you?" I couldn't believe that I was hearing this. But that's who is the Tea Party. Another example that I like to say who the Tea Party is, a friend of mine from when I went to college in Massachusetts, a friend of mine from Worcester, Massachusetts. He's a Russian Jew, and his mother fled from the Soviet Union because she was persecuted there. And she's lived in this country for a long time in Worcester, Mass, and never been involved in politics as well until the Scott Brown election. And she got very upset about what was going on in the country, and especially with the healthcare debate, that she found out all the Russian Jews she could find in the Boston area, and she found 5,000 of them. And she single-handedly reached out and touched every single one of them, either by going to their door, calling them, writing them, something like that. All outside the Republican Party, all outside of established political, things. And this tells you, there's a sleeping giant out there that's awake. And I like to describe the Tea Party in kind of similar terms that Admiral Yamamoto described after he bombed Pearl Harbor. All the Japanese were celebrating. You saw the movie Tor, Tor, Tor. You remember this scene where Yamamoto's sitting there and he's sullen. And all the Japanese officers around him were like, "We just, had a major victory." And his response was, "All I fear, as I've done, is awaken a sleeping giant." And that's what this administration and this one-party rule down in D.C. have done here in Middle America, right here in Michigan. I'll give you a little bio of myself and tell you why I'm running and why I'm in Michigan. I did grow up in Pennsylvania. I moved to Florida when I was 12, and I met my wife in middle school, actually. But we didn't start dating. And I went to college in Western Massachusetts called Williams College. That's where Martha Coakley, anybody remember who she was? She was actually James Garfield went there, one of the first Republican presidents. But Martha Coakley was Scott Brown's opponent in the race. My college was a very liberal institution. I like to say I was inoculated from liberalism. They're not affected by it. But I like to think of my liberal professors the next day after Scott Brown